Okay, our last installment on decisions is the switch block. A switch block is kind of a concise way of looking for a match, an exact match usually. It's harder to set up if you're looking for a range, but if you're looking for things that are equal to this or that, it's often a cleaner way to do it. Let's say we have, well, first let's show we have our Apache web server is running. And we've looked in the htdocs, and we have a form that we're going to use to have the user enter the last name of an author. And then when we click submit, we're going to give the user 2 books written by that author. And the source for the regular HTML one is pretty straightforward. The name of the page that will be returning the information back to the user after it's sent is authorsbook.php in the action attribute. We're still using the post method. There is a single text box called author underscore name. We need that name to do what we need to do. And let's look at the page that actually catches it, because this is where the code is. So at the top, we get the author underscore name text box value that the user typed in. Whatever user typed into that, the user typed into that text box, we can get with our $ underscore post scheme, which we've talked about several times, and assign it to a variable. And we do this at the top of the page so that when we go ahead and process the page, we have all the information we need to do it. We have the normal document declaration. We have the head section of the page we're going to send back to the user, and the body and HTML ending. And in the middle, in the body of the thing, we have our PHP code, which will identify the author. And when we find a match, we will send back the author's full name and 2 books of the by that author. So to make the comparison easier, I've introduced a new built-in function called string to lower, str to lower, and it takes whatever's in the parentheses, whether it's a literal string or a string variable, and whatever the characters are, it makes them all lowercase. And this makes it easier to compare things, because otherwise you would have to compare Faulkner, say, as an author with a capital F or with a lowercase f or all capitals or whatever. So by converting the string to all lowercase letters, we make it easier to identify the particular thing the user typed in. And so we take name, make it lowercase, assign it back to the variable name. And then the switch block, let's look at its structure. It starts with the word switch. It's in parentheses the variable, or it could be an expression or whatever. Whatever it has to reduce to a single value, though, that we're going to look for a match to. And then the whole structure is enclosed in an opening and closing curly brace. The individual cases, the individual things we are looking for, are identified by the word case. And then the thing you want to match. We're going to match the author Faulkner or the author Spillane or the author Potter. These are called case labels, and the case label then is terminated by a colon. So don't forget the colon. There's a colon at each one of these. Then, assuming there's a match to that, then this code executes it down to the break. So in this case, we would just say the author's name is William Faulkner. The first title is Absalom, Absalom, and the second title is The Sound and the Fury. And then this break statement, when it executes, causes execution to exit the whole switch block, so the other cases are not tested. So the first case that tests true, the code associated with it executes, and then it exits the whole structure. Now, okay, well, let's run it real quick and see what happens. No. So let's type in Faulkner. And I can even capitalize the last R, and it should change it to lowercase. And I have a mistake somewhere. Oh, I didn't run it in my, sorry, I didn't run it through my web server. That's what happens if you don't run it through the web server, of course, is that you end up displaying all the code rather than executing the code. So sorry, I forgot where I had put where I'd put that. Localhost author form is the name of the form. And this should, unless I've made a mistake, I don't think I have in this case. So no matter how I capitalize Faulkner, I hope, when I click submit, I get William Faulkner, the 2 books, thanks for visiting the page. And the same would be true if I did Beatrix Potter. Now, I don't have very many authors here, but I can make my point with only 3. So Beatrix Potter wrote The Tale of Peter Rabbit and the Flopsy Bunnies. So let me keep that. Now, so this is how this works. Let me go back and open this up one more time. What happens if you don't have a break? If you leave the break out, let me change that to a comment. If you leave the break statement out, then everything executes down until the next break, which usually you don't want. I guess there are cases where you might want that to happen, but in most cases not. So if you typed in Faulkner and I didn't have a break here, we would get not only Absalom, Absalom and the Sound and the Fury, but we would get Mickey Spillane, I the Jury, and Kiss Me Deadly. So the break statement needs to be there, or it just kind of keeps going until it gets one, including the default. Now, one last thing, if there is no match, there is a default section at the bottom which has no case label. It does have a colon, and then this is what happens if there are none of the matches above. So if I type in XYZ or some author that's not in my list, it should tell me that it's not, I either misspelled it or it's not on my list. So this is the switch statement. It's handy for, in most cases, if you're looking for an exact match rather than a range, and in some cases it makes kind of setting up the decision a cleaner process.